And we're live. Just for a moment. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, April the 14th. Welcome to Generational Change. I am Peter. Jen is rebooting. And as you guys have probably learned since we started doing this show, we occasionally had our technical difficulties. So this is not an unheralded circumstance. But hope you're all doing well. And it's great to see you all in the chat this evening, of course. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure if you are subscribed to make sure that you're still subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And then also make sure to share this live stream wherever you can. So hope you all had a great weekend. Obviously a lot, it's amazing. We have to decide every time we go live what stories we're going to cover, because there is no limit to how many different places we can go in terms of topics to discuss. And as oh, that's interesting, Jen.
Don't even ask.
Are you on like a laptop of some kind? Yeah.
I'm having technical difficulties. Did you say, hi, everyone, welcome? It's Monday Night Generational Change.
Well, we're way past that at this point.
Okay, but I'm Jen.
You are. Are you sure about that?
I am.
We're not going to talk too much about what happened yesterday, because obviously that's going to be a huge topic of discussion on Sunday. But for those of you who have not seen our Instagram and YouTube post for today, Jen, if you want to just give everybody a brief description of the event that you attended yesterday and what we will be discussing with Steve Sosby, the head of Heal Palestine, on Thursday.
So yesterday I went to the Fort Lauderdale airport, where there was a big group of people, predominantly Muslim WhatsApp chat people, but it's an organization called Heal Palestine. And there was a little girl, her name is Lana. She's 10 years old and she is from Gaza. She had her leg amputated and she is here for further treatment. And this organization connects children from Gaza with host families and doctors that are volunteering their services. So this coincidentally worked out that there was a family for her and her mom. They wouldn't let her dad and her brother out because, they like to keep everybody separate. So she is here and there was a big welcome for her and lots of balloons, and it was really sweet. And I will say it was the only funnish thing that I've had in regards to this. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Steve Sosby on Thursday. He is the person. I don't know if he's the director or the founder of Heal Palestine, but we're going to be talking with him because he found a really good niche in a horrible situation, because doing that actually does feel good.
Yeah, I saw the footage, as many of you have, and a big shout out to all of our South Florida supporters. Jen had a nice reunion with a number of people that helped out on the campaign and are just good, community serving individuals. We don't have a lot of that in South Florida, so believe me, it's probably very cathartic, not just for you, Jen, but for a lot of people that happened to have attended yesterday and were able to rekindle with some people that they haven't seen in a while. So I would definitely say that was probably something that was very enjoyable for many, which is great.
It definitely was, for me, it definitely had a campaign reunion kind of vibe to it. But just in general, that community, it's just every time I'm around this, like, they're very, this tri-county Muslim community down here in South Florida. It's, I don't want to say they all know each other, but they kind of all know each other in this tri-county, because they all they mosque hop. And so it's just such a special group of people. And I've been so welcomed and included. And every time I meet more people in that community, it's just so, like, it's just really nice. It's really nice to be around them. And I always feel privileged to even be invited in, and the fact that they're so appreciative.
Ray J brings up, how does El Salvador president even get a say in return on the person who, Jen, you muted yourself. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. When the person in question, forgive me for not remembering the gentleman's name right now, who is being held as a political prisoner in an El Salvador prison. And you ask, why does the El Salvadorian president have a say in this? Why would Trump have a say in this? Because here's the thing. This is no different than Gaza. This is no different than any overreaching, empire-centric policy that we employ. To admit one mistake is to admit all mistakes. If you are going to admit that this person is illegally incarcerated and should never have been taken away, that opens up the floodgates to do the same for everybody, because they'll all say, I'm innocent, they're innocent. This is what happens when you execute policies which are not really thought through clearly before they're actually executed. Again, shooting from the hip.
I'm not exactly sure which person we're talking about. Are you talking about the gay hairdresser?
No, I'm talking about the gentleman who was wrongly identified as a gang member.
Well, one said person that was rounded up with the Venezuelans is this gay hairdresser. And the reason that that's really relevant for a lot of reasons, not just how scary that's got to be, extra scary to be in the position that he's in, but the fact that you would look at this person and know that they're not who you think they are. And it's just so clear. And that's the point of it, that it was clear and they didn't care.
No, why would they? And again, this gets back to the whole issue of collateral damage. And look, there will be, for those of you, I will probably at some point have my father come on as a guest for a brief explanation into the tariff situation. My father happens to be an estate planner, and this is something that is affecting a lot of people with money. And I think a lot of people that got very wealthy over the last generation at the expense of working class people in the United States may actually have some sort of comeuppance coming. And I heard a very good description the other day about what Trump's motivation is as to why he's going down this path. And the biggest, which makes the most sense to me, is that Trump sort of sees himself in sort of like a godlike figure, and that it is his divine duty to save America. What he and so many others in his class don't realize is that we are past the point of no return in this current economic and political system. You can't salvage it without doing dramatic shifts in terms of the infrastructure. So if you think that tariffs, which could potentially have benefit, I'm not one of those people who's just going to write it off and say that there isn't anything to it. But if we're not talking about at a bare minimum a living wage and universal health care in the United States, then what the hell are we talking about? Those are the only two legitimate safety nets that you can give people that will actually give them an opportunity to succeed in an otherwise very broken system. And then we can grow from there. But that's not even coming up in conversation. That, to me, more than anything else, is the biggest disconnect that so many of these overarching issues have. And you even pointed out, Jen, and we'll talk more about it on Thursday, but you did have an individual who clearly was of a Jewish background, who saw what was going on at the airport, and they didn't like it. And they did their little hissing under their breath.
Yeah, there was, yeah. I mean, we are in Broward County. You know, you're going to get that. I hate when you eat when we're on. I hate that so much. It's not cool. Don't eat while you're on. It's not good. People tell him it's rude. So, yeah, most people that got off the plane were pleased, but you're jumping all over the place. And we're just talking about tariffs. I find the whole thing, it's comical if it weren't so dangerous, but it really does, like, it is very apparent that Donald Trump has no understanding whatsoever of macroeconomics. None. He has no understanding whatsoever. Now, one would think you would be surrounded by people that do have an understanding, but when you only surround yourself with people that go along with your ridiculous nonsense, you're not going to get quality people that understand it either. So all of this to me is basically his sort of like pissing match with China, with Russia. It's just all of it. But at the end of the day, he's really going for China. And he really thinks that that is somehow he is going to, at this point, given where we are in this country economically, somehow he is going to change it and somehow beat China in a trade war. That is clearly someone that either has absolutely no understanding of our economic situation in the world, or two, is just deranged and just wants to like take us off a cliff. I don't know. But to think that China does not give a shit. China doesn't give a shit. We are so screwed. It's like he really doesn't see that he's walking us off a cliff. And yeah, China has been around for 5,000 years. Like, the caucasity, right? Like, this is one of those things. Like, he really thinks that he's going to show a country who has had more economic success and growth in the past, like, what, 30 years than I think we've had ever. So, you know, their priority is to lift people out of poverty and create better infrastructure for their people. We don't share those priorities. So to be attacking them like they're the problem is just so off the wall.
Well, I can't say I'm surprised, but
thank you. 10,000 years. I was actually quoting the representative from China. I don't know who it was, someone in their finance, their ministry, something that was being interviewed, and he said 5,000. So that's why I said that. I'm sorry. He might have just been, you know, shortballing it. I don't know.
No, there was somebody who had gone on and mentioned that I guess civilized society in China has been around for at least 5,000 years, whereas in the United States, it's a couple hundred.
Please.
So
they were doing math while our people were like playing with sticks. So I just, it's again, this is the caucasity factor. And I feel like the leaders in China, I can't even fathom how like unbelievably dumb they think that our leadership is. How unbelievably dumb. And then here's the best part. Here's the kicker. Instead of like really focusing on our infrastructure and educating our people, we're rounding up and deporting all the best people from around the world that have come here to study. Somehow that seems to make sense. To round up all these really brilliant people and deport them. Yeah, well, that'll help us.
Well, it's not going to, no, I mean, it's not going to solve that problem. But I do think that they've reached a point where they don't know what to do. And I think that that's the hardest part.
Because they don't understand economics. If you're talking about like Donald Trump clearly does not understand economics, because
they fully understand.
I've been watching a lot of people that do, and clearly he doesn't.
Well, hold on. They fully understand economics. They just don't want the average person to understand them as well. That's how they've been able to get away with what they've been able to get away with for so long. You can convince people something as simple as the taxpayers' money is what funds the government versus the government prints money and you are taxed to fund sans programs. It's something as simple as that to try to convince people otherwise. And as I've often said, the biggest problem we have is that the American people do not have an actual say in how our money is allocated, hence what's going on in Gaza, among other things. And so if we had more of that control, I think this would be a much different country. As Thomas Jefferson once said, when people fear the government, there's tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty.
Yeah,
And
said by a slave owner. So that's hilarious. But anyway.
Yeah. Nevertheless,
every time you bring up some ridiculous presidential thing, like I should have any more revere or respect, it's like that ship sailed so.
Well, I didn't say anything about revere. I was
but it's like I used to have some respect for certain people. Now I just realize it was all just make believe.
Do you have any respect for our guest that's coming in?
Yes, that's the queen.
I like her. I think we've all liked her.
I feel sad that I'm not on the main computer, like that she is worthy of much better sound and visual quality. I also can't even turn the light on now because it's connected to the thing. Anyway, so that's the thing. I'm just saying.
She was the campaign co-chair of Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign. She is as as strong an advocate for working class ideals in this country as anybody that we have seen on the national stage in the last decade. And she is somebody who we are both proud to call a friend. Nina Turner, welcome back to Generational Change.
It's good to be with you all. And Jen, you look great in any lighting. You two are cracking me up right now.
Okay, but I was just about to say to you, I love you in pink. I know I've said that to you before, but I really do like you in pink. Like it's a really good color on you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you both?
We're good. We're good.
I was catching crap from Jen in the chat because I was eating because I actually was at the gym like just before.
I don't want to hear that. Then you need to have
better
time management.
I stopped. Okay. I stopped. Isn't that what counts?
You two are hilarious.
So what's popping? No, we're obviously observing everything that's going on right now. And I think the country is clearly going through some type of a titanic shift of sorts. And, we'll see how it unfolds. It's very difficult to keep an eye on the ball when it seems like there's 4 or 5 different things going on at any one time. How does one even stay on top of what's going on? I think that's probably the biggest thing. We used to have information sort of trickle in. We would hear about one major issue, but I even said as soon as we went on the air, there's like a dozen things we could talk about right now. And that's a lot. That's like information overload for the average person, I would think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's important to stay informed and try not to be inundated. But I think to your point, Peter, people are inundated now. You can't keep up at all. So try not to keep up with all of this stuff. It's sensory overload right now, unfortunately. And that's really how the Trump administration wants it.
I think it's intentional. I wouldn't necessarily say it's just him. I think it's really a capital thing. I think that oligarchy likes to keep everybody distracted in general. Like I think the more like we're chasing around, like we're like chasing our tails. And I think that it's very intentional. I think that they like it. And I also think that our minds, the human mind, is really not capable of comprehending a lot of the stuff that we're seeing. It's just so far, like, we're just not, like, it's so far beyond us. We're not even supposed to know, like, our biologically, we're not really supposed to know what's going on the other side of the world, let alone horrible, horrible things. And I think that we can't allow it to be normal. And that's the scariest thing to me, is that we're getting to where this is just the new normal. And that is what is freaking me out. And the amount of people that are going about their lives like nothing is happening, I feel like I'm being gaslit by omission.
I feel it. So how do you two stay grounded with all of this? Because you're reporting on it on a regular basis, having deep conversations between yourselves and others about what is happening in our country and also in the world.
Well, we spoke with Bree this past week, and we think, she loves you too. And of course, it's
a mutual admiration society.
Yeah. And we think that it's necessary that there has to be a class conscious coalition build. Not everybody's created the same. We've seen other content creators that have tried to do it, but of course, most of it's driven by money. In our case, I see it as something as simple as Medea came on our podcast a couple of weeks ago and asked us, if there's anybody in particular that you could think of that would be good, to connect us with, especially in DC. And I thought, well, Ron Paul does this. He runs the Ron Paul Institute with Daniel McAdams, and they are extremely anti-war libertarians. And so it just made perfect sense to connect them. These are the types of puzzle pieces that need to come together. If we are ever going to withstand and ultimately defeat the Israel lobby, for example, these types of groups need to come together. There is no other way, because we've seen what they did to you. It really comes full circle in so many ways, because one of the key derailments from your congressional runs was that they did to you what they were obviously going to do to Jen, which is the Israel lobby knows no bounds. There is no line they will not cross. There is nothing that they will not do to maintain their power structure, which I think is kind of cratering a little bit right now, to be honest.
And there's certainly an awakening in this country that was not there in 21 when I ran in a special election in Ohio 11th. And then 8 months later, or maybe a little less than 8 months, the regular election cycle. I mean, you have the reject PAC, people, or reject APAC, out there educating people, making it known which elected officials are taking that money. And, it's bigger than APAC too. And I know you and Jen get this. This is about dark money and corporate forces in our elections, period, across the board. And if the Democratic Party wants to delineate itself, especially in primary elections, I understand the argument of saying, well, we can't quite do it in the general election, as much as I want to see both political parties reject dark money, reject corporate influence in that way. At least minimally, the Democrats could do it in the primary. That is what happened to me in the primary. And Ohio 11th was a precursor, it was a foreshadowing of what was going to happen to both Congress members, Bowman and also Bush. They wrote it. And if you go back and read some of the quotes from the DMFI leadership, they said, oh, what we did in Ohio 11th, we will do all across the nation. And you're right, Peter, they were coming for Jen as well. They come for progressives hard. They come for especially progressives, Black progressives, and then other progressives. And that is absolutely true. We got the facts to back that up. So no group, whether it's APAC, DMFI, NRA, both NRAs, the National Rifle Association, people might be saying, Sister Senator, who's the other one? The National Restaurant Association, that fights very hard to keep the sub minimum wage in place.
Right.
Shout out to one fair wage. We got to talk about all of these forces, the pharmaceutical lobby, the health insurance lobby, you name it. They own these folks. We should have the NASCAR Act where it forces, that's it. Let them wear who owns them. The owner donors need to be displayed in full view so the American people can see who these elected officials, whose bidding they're doing, because obviously they're not doing the bidding of the everyday people in this nation. And I got to shout out Tammy. Tammy said my frames are fly. So thank you, Tammy.
She said dope. And so I know that. I know that because of Mo, my friend Mo. I don't know if you met Mo, my friend Mo, but she says dope. So I knew that was good, because otherwise I old. And I am definitely not, I am not that dope. I smoke dope, but I don't know that I am dope.
Oh, God, you do sound old.
No, but this is the beauty of not being a candidate. Like, I have zero fucks to give now. Like, it is very freeing. It is very freeing. So you have to hear, I went to the Hands Off rally that there was down here in Hollywood, which is, Broward County. Yeah. And it was exactly as expected. It was like, I'd say 80% older white people with dump Trump, hands off Social Security signs. I was the only person that I saw in Kafia. There was one other hands off Palestine situation. But I saw more hands off NATO than I saw things that are anti-war. So there is definitely a demographic here that is the reason why Debbie gets to sit where she does. Like, and there are other demographics in other areas where, had I gone to those rallies in other places where there were the Free Palestine contingencies of people in those rallies and weren't just solely there about, oh, it's a Trump and Elon problem.
I also think it's a concentration in many ways, a deliberate concentration of the voter bases within the Democratic Party, which is why they've become an exceptionally regional party. They are only seen in places like Cleveland, like Columbus, like Cincinnati, and even Cincinnati's become very red in a lot of ways. And then you look in Florida, you have the I-4 corridor, Orlando, Tampa, slightly Jacksonville. And then, you kind of still have, a blue area in the southeast part of the state in, Broward County, for example. But in those particular areas, the concentration of the voter demographic of the Democratic Party has shown itself to be extremely neoliberal and out of touch. And that is what this particular event, I think, in many ways has reflected in sort of the distinguished and recognizable change within the demographic of the Democratic Party. I don't think anyone could possibly deny that at this point.
I mean, we know certainly in the 2024 election cycle that Democrats enjoyed more the affluent, educated voter, where more working class type voters went towards President Donald J. Trump across ideology or across ethnic and racial lines. I would say to what you both are saying, I mean, look, we need the 80%. We need everybody out there. Now, what brings them out, we can debate that. And I think that's where you guys are going. What I would say about hands off, when you have millions of people, I think they said 5 million across the United States of America come out on one day. We got to give people big ups for coming out. My now, not contention, but my recommendation and or concern is, what do you do with that energy? It's one thing to have people come out one time. We need to direct that energy to direct action over time. And I would say the same thing about these fight the oligarchy rallies as well.
Oh.
That's drawing out people. That's good to draw out people then, but what's next? How do we
What's the ask?
That's it.
Well,
how do we make it actionable for the long term? And I think people coming out in different places are a reflection of, so Jen, you saw one type of crowd. You're right. Had you been in another area, you would have saw another type of crowd. And so people reflect their region and their area. And to your point, Peter, people come out for different reasons. The Democratic Party, not the people who still believe in the Democratic Party necessarily. My contention is with the leadership of the Democratic Party. There needs to be they have failed the faithful. It needs to be a full autopsy of this party. It needs to be a reckoning with this party. And I'm talking about the leadership. I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the leadership now. Now, we can have a whole conversation about the people and how we have to galvanize and educate and have conversations with people so they see things differently. We have a lot of neoliberal voters because we got a lot of neoliberal leadership. It's a failure of leadership. And I don't believe that the same leaders who got us in this mess should be leading now. So not only should Senator Chuck Schumer go, Representative Hakeem Jeffries should go. They all should go. Everybody on the leadership team in both the House and the Senate, y'all go bye-bye, because anytime you lose a second election to President Donald J. Trump, you lose the popular vote, you lose the Electoral College vote. Who knew? We knew. People like us knew.
No, I totally knew. I totally knew it was going to happen. It's really great. Really great.
President Trump knew. No, those people got to go. They really have to go. They are not the leadership for this moment.
No, they represent corporations. They represent capital. And that's who bought the party. That's who bought the party. And that's the problem. Like, I don't think it's redeemable. Like, I don't think it's going to get fixed from within. I don't think we can elect our way out of it. And I think that this needs to be a labor movement. This is a class war. And until there is a party that actually represents that group of people, they're going to continue to lose to the Republicans, because, as I always say, we don't need new Coke. You know what I mean? There's no point for that. So it's like, either you represent working people, or
I have to come on here and I have to say hello to my former campaign co-chair, Nina. It's lovely to see you. And maybe one of these days we'll get you out on the trail. Alex is doing a wonderful job, but I know no one can excite a crowd quite like you can. I wanted to come on here, Jen.
Nobody.
We did have a rally in California the other day. Well, I think you got the gist of what my message was. We have to fight for what? I don't know exactly, but we'll come up with it eventually. Just get out there, get active, get involved. That's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can
you.
we talk about that audience for a second? Okay. That is seriously, of all the people to be talking about class war to, I don't think the crowd at Coachella is necessarily that group. Like that to me is just sort of like, who is that? Who can afford to go to Coachella? Who are the people at Coachella? It's not working people. It's, to me, it looks like a whole bunch of rich kids.
I would push back just slightly. I mean, maybe there's a younger generation there that, well, a lot that depend on their parents. So I get where you're coming from. But I think that is the type of message should go a little deeper. But everybody should hear that message because we need people who are not in the working class to give a damn too. We really do. Now, whether that's the venue to have a deep conversation, that's why it was superficial. That might not necessarily be the best place to have a deep conversation, but I want people from all economic strata to understand the challenges that we are facing and that the ultra wealthy do better when everyday people in this country do better. That is the fact. I mean, our economy, 70% consumer-based economy. What sense does it make to trample upon poor people and working class people in this country? Obviously, for many of them, far too many of them, it makes a whole lot of sense because all they're going to do is go to Mars or Saturn or somewhere and mess up that planet. No, let's keep the mess down here on Earth. I don't want them going around there, Jen, messing up somebody else's planet. But you see what I'm getting at. I think the message is germane for everybody. And most people are working class. Some people may be six figures working class. I have a lot of friends who started working in government at the age of 18. And, now they have amassed, working what I would call working class millions. They are not, of the ultra wealthy, but they're comfortable, but they care. So we need people from all economic strata to actually give a damn about what is happening to the everyday people in this country. Your point is well taken. I just want to add that to that. It's always the time to talk to people about why they should care. And if you are in the upper echelons of the economic strata, you should care even more. Hence the patriotic millionaires, which I know you and Peter are familiar with. Our big ups to them for going around the country saying this ain't right and tax us because we can afford it. We want to see a better country. And if you have to live behind a gated community, not because you want to, but because you have to, because there's civil unrest everywhere, I don't think that's the kind of country you want to live in. So it behooves us to get this thing right. And people who have more leisure time because they don't have to worry about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that base need, they can do more to help turn the tide. So everybody should be concerned. But I got you, Jen. I understand where you're coming from.
I definitely agree. Being in commercial real estate, I deal with the upper echelon of society. There are, tons of people that I run into that are completely indifferent and they think it's, a conqueror's world, if you will. I'm going to get mine and that's that. But there's enough of them that really do understand that, this is a dire situation.
It never works.
Couldn't. If you're, think of it this way. If you're a wealthy investor, not Mr. Wexner, but if you're a wealthy investor in the state of Ohio, for example, and you own, let's say, a multifamily building in Akron, and people can't afford rent, what the hell is your investment worth? It's not worth anything. If people do not have the ability to get universal health care or a living wage, and they can't afford to pay $1,000 a month for rent in a 2-bedroom apartment, then what do you expect? How do you think you could possibly hoard all of the wealth? And the whole argument, obviously comes back to modern monetary theory and that it's not really a pie, but at the end of the day, it's the value of what you actually have. And if you don't have anything, if you have next to nothing, or you're dependent on the government because you can't afford to live otherwise, that's a broken system. It doesn't have to be that way. No. But there are way too many people that just copy the Walton family's model with Walmart and have executed it basically into almost every corner of our economic system. And at some point, you have to take a step back and say, this is unsustainable. I don't care if I have $10 million, $100 million. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be worth anything if even if I'm asset rich, which is the best rich to be if you're going to be anything. Just look at the topsy-turvy world of the stock market. I am not one who advocates for stock market investment. But if you are an investor in any way, and knowing the volatility of what we're dealing with right now, there is value without question in Bernie's message. I think that there are many layers to it, especially his opinion when it comes to Israel and Gaza. But if we're only talking specifically about why are he and Alex out there right now doing what they're doing, I don't begrudge them for being there, because there's a lot of people that are scared. They don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of economic uncertainty. And naturally, when Trump will do, as he often does, shoots from the hip when it comes to economic and political policy, the people who will suffer first are always the people who are struggling the most to survive. And so I get that there are tens of thousands of people in Los Angeles and Salt Lake City and the like that want to hear him and hear her espouse this message of, we're not giving up on the system. We're not just going to let it fall apart. My question to you is, what is the point of this? What is their goal? I know you probably still talk to him. I'm sure you talk to her. And whatever information can be revealed, I think people want to hear this, because they're giving a message of, we are going to fight the oligarchy. Yeah, I get it, Bernie. That's great. But if we're not fighting the oligarchy, for example, within the Democratic Party that trades on inside information just as much, if not more, than the Republican Party does, then we are arguing over nothing. We're arguing over the fact that the system's broken, but we're not doing anything to fix it. So what do you want to see, and what should we see, and what should their message be ultimately in terms of how we go forward?
Yeah, I mean, motivating the choir is a beautiful thing. I mean, most of the people out there are nostalgic for Sanders' presidential run 2016 and 2020. Those are his people mainly. Let's make no mistake about it. He may have other folks tagging along, but those are his people. And when I look at these rallies, it makes me think about 2016 and 2020. And the three of us know what happened there. The neoliberals thwarted his very real chance of winning in both 2016 and also in 2020. They are responsible for Trump 2.0. This just did not happen during the 2024 election cycle. It's not just because we didn't have a robust primary. Hello, somebody, in 2023. I'm going to put that in the parking lot. This goes way back to 2015, actually. So what I would like to see, fine, motivate people, get them out. All of that stuff is grand. I want to see what we're going to do with them after that, after the cell phone lights are off, after the crowds are gone. What are we instructing them to do? You know, I'm working on, with my organization, the resurrection of the freedom budget for all Americans as envisioned by Asa Philip Randolph, one of the best labor organizers of the 20th century, Bayard Rustin, one of the brainiacs behind the civil rights movement itself, and also the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Jen and Peter, what they laid out in the late 60s, it was 1966, is a full-fledged plan to eradicate poverty in the United States of America in 10 years. It was what we would call a SMART goal before SMART goals even existed. And really, Asa Philip Randolph, you know, one of the architects, his vision was based on the four freedoms of FDR. He pulled out the freedom from want. And what they said very clearly, they didn't say it this way, but we're a hegemonic nation. We have failed if people live in poverty. There's no reason for people to live in poverty because we are a hegemonic nation. So we ought to do something about it. We need to call on the forces of the political class to do something about it. And they assembled people from all walks of life, all the pillars of society, from religious to civic based. Over 150 people of high note signed on to this. And it was very clear that they didn't agree on every little thing. But as progressives in the 21st century, which I don't even use that word that much anymore, I'm a liberator, because people have glommed on to progressive and it don't mean a damn thing to them. I am a liberator. But back to the freedom budget, guaranteed income. They were talking about that in the late 60s. A lot of the stuff that progressives think is new and hip and only started with Senator Sanders has been out there for a very long time. I do believe that the liberation struggle for all everyday working class people, oppressed peoples, stream through the Black liberation, because Black folks and their liberation, or our liberation journey, steeped in the type of dehumanization and bigotry, not just chattel slavery, but Jim and Jane Crow, sundown towns, red line. I mean, you name it. It is through that kind of suffering and what the African-American community has been able to accomplish, and the resiliency under such pressure of that community is the key. And so the architects understood that all people, all working class people, all poor people had to be in it. So guaranteed income, Medicare for all, farm parity, making sure that we take care of people who cannot work, all the things that we agree on. Now we can put some 21st century on it, which we have put in there more, less, no spending on war. Let's bring that stuff back here. Anti-war, pro-peace, more stuff about the environment, taking up some of the 21st century fights that they may not have thought about in the 20th century. But when I tell you it is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant plan, we need people to take up that plan, the freedom budget for all Americans. So, Peter, that was a long way for me to say, I got the rallies, love the rallies, reminds me of 2016, 2020, but we need action after this. We got to organize people and galvanize them towards a thing. It's one thing to fight against neoliberalism. We got to fight for something, and that is missing for the Democratic Party in particular. That fight has to animate the masses of the people in this country who have been left behind. The Democratic Party failed. They need new leadership. They need an autopsy, and they need to apologize to the American people for losing, because this merciless attack on the everyday people of this country that's coming from this current president is brought to you by the neoliberal Democrats.
Yes, for sure. Actually, what's interesting is, so I'm reading this book called Revolt of the Rich, How the Politics of the 1970s Widen America's Class Divide by David Gibbs. And we're going to be speaking with him next week. And yeah, this has been continuous. It has nothing to do with party. This started he starts really with Nixon in the very beginning, but it goes right through Carter, right through Reagan. Like it's all of them. It's all of them. Yeah. And that's really the problem, is that I just don't see how this is going to be fixed by partisan politics. Yeah. And I don't understand what Bernie and Alex are suggesting. So at the end of the day, are they wanting those people to vote Democrat?
They're not giving them. I mean, I'm sorry, Jay. It goes back to what Peter's brought up. I mean, organizing them to do what? So I want to give credit where credit is due. It's one thing to recognize the fear. That's what Peter, people are scared, and say, let's come together and have our cups filled. It's another thing to say, let's come together and get our cups filled, and here's our action plan. I know where you're going, Jen. You're organized. When Dr. King was kind of parsing out, did he lead Black people the wrong way with integration? Did he lead them into a burning house? His words. That is the same question we're asking right now, when you have two very popular leaders out there telling the people who are coming to these rallies, telling them what? Because unless the Democratic Party is willing to admit fault, we messed up, we apologize, give us another chance. If they don't do that, it's going to be more of the same.
Well,
I don't see any accountability with any of them. I feel like they all went and had a meeting, decided on a whole bunch of rebranding tools and suggestions. Okay, you guys go do the anti-oligarchy tour. I always said, okay, Gavin Newsom, you start a podcast. We'll do some TikTok videos of us getting into fighting shape and some other ridiculous shit. And it's sort of like they're running around just trying to deal with what they think is their problem, which is messaging. And that is not their problem.
The problem is the mission.
They don't
have no. The mission is missing. Had they increased the federal minimum wage, we probably wouldn't be here, right? Had they gotten rid of the joy, we probably would. All the things that they could have done. And as much as I begrudge, and it blows my mind about how quickly, I often say neo-fascism kills you quick, neoliberalism kills you slow.
Yeah,
I know the three of us have come to the recognition that President Biden had the same tools at his disposal as President Donald J. Trump. The Congress in the first 2 years of the Biden administration had the same power at their disposal. The difference is that they were too much of cowards to use it.
It was a presidency that, in my opinion, probably in yours too, and certainly in Jen's, was over within the first 100 days, when he said, I'd like to raise the minimum wage, but the damn parliamentarians do it. And I'm thinking, well, there's
all power, almighty parliamentarian. Go ahead, Peter.
The reason we're sitting here today, people will look at how the Democratic Party evolved to this point it was years and years in the making. Obviously, we have very strong opinions about a number of people at the head of the table that made it possible, Debbie, among other people. But it's the system. The system is broken, and you have people who are willing to give in to continue to perpetuate the system. And you see the people today, he was the first name that just came to mind, but, somebody like Harry Sisson, he's a Gen Zer, very popular on TikTok and, Twitter and Instagram. And all he does is further perpetuate the narrative that the Democratic Party's fine. It's all about the Republicans. Once we get into power, we're going to solve this problem. And the only thing I'm thinking is I'm watching him do it. And then what that says to me is when you have a corporate infrastructure that is funded through Wall Street and Silicon Valley and the military industrial complex, there will always be people that will have their hands out. There will always be people that will want to do these things, not because there is any validity to it. This is going to benefit me in terms of my career. We saw it with Debbie down here. We saw it with Chantel Brown where you are, and we will see it all throughout this country where, and this is the thing I don't think people truly understand about politics, especially at the federal level, is that this type of power is so intoxicating that even somebody like Khanna, who is independently wealthy outside of politics, is really enamored with the idea of being a leader in the political life. And I don't think Roe is necessarily one of the bad guys out there. There's not many good people to write home about. But even somebody like Roe, I can see he could do 1,000,001 things in his life if he wants to, but he wants to do this. And imagine what it's like for somebody who has sociopathic personality disorder. For them, this is all they want.
We don't imagine it. We see it daily. You saw the Brian Mass video. These are psychopaths.
I'm going to take it one step further because this just happened today, as I'm sure you are aware, and we have to talk about it. So the governor of Pennsylvania, who clearly has ambitions of running for president, there's no question he will do it in 28. And Shapiro is somebody in particular who obviously has been very adamant about not only endless war in support of Ukraine, but also support of Israel. So he kind of checks all of those wonderful boxes. Now, I'm not here defending what anybody chooses to do, but he gave his little press conference at the state capitol in Pennsylvania in Harrisburg earlier today. And there's a little bit of a follow-up after that. So here's what Governor Shapiro had to say.
We don't know the person's specific motive yet, but we do know a few truths. First, this type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society.
Oh.
And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other, directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay. And it has to stop. We have to be better than this. And we have a responsibility to all be better.
The only thing that I will say in Governor Shapiro's defense is that this arsonist apparently went after his family. Now, one can make the argument about whether that's off limits. I believe children are off limits. But in terms of him being a governor and having a problem with what happened with somebody coming after him, let's not forget about this.
Been to the crossing points.
Wrong one.
You moved too fast, Paul.
So what we're watching is this man signing bombs that are going to go be dropped in. I think this was in Russia. I think this was Ukraine, the Ukraine conflict. But he could have just as easily been signing them to go into Gaza. I mean, he doesn't care either way.
What about the women and children that died with you signing these bombs?
See, that's what I was going to say. You say kids are off limits. Does Josh Shapiro know that?
Well, no, I'm saying from my perspective. I'm saying
No.
that from our perspective, and the greatest sin, the greatest tragedy of the genocide in Gaza is obviously the mass murder of children. There's no getting around that. However, somebody like Josh Shapiro, who wants to wax poetic on national television about the fact that an arsonist tried to rain terror against him, well, what are you doing here? This is the same thing. So this is why people, I think, in many ways, Nina, are simply done with, the decorum politics. There is something to be said for people who always want to act like this is not who we are. This is not what we do. It kind of is. We are a war-driven economy in so many ways, and we're totally getting a trillion with a T, first ever $1 trillion military budget.
It's insane.
So,
That's why we can't have nice things domestically. I do not support the bombing, the trying to kill, trying to hurt any elected official. I hear what you're saying about his family, but trying to kill the governor, it should be off limits too. It should be off limits. Now, I'm glad that you guys show, because I was going to say, yeah, he signed a warhead. The hypocrisy is really what we're getting at. That's really what you're getting at, the hypocrisy. And people are going to be able to see through it. I mean, who signs a warhead? However, is that I don't subscribe to people trying to settle their differences that way. Not whether it's him or his family. That is wrong to do. That person was wrong. It's against the law. It's morally wrong. This is not how you're supposed to settle the score. Now, the fact that him and others all the time, whether it's this situation or a situation that there was no violence at all, always try to act like this is not who we are. No, this is who we are. This is the nation before it formed, stealing the land from the Native Americans. This is the nation that before it was formed and even after it was formed, enslaved my ancestors. I mean, this is who we are. Violence, war, conquest, empire. That's the part I take exception with Peter and Jen, not him saying this is not the way we should settle it. Maybe he should listen to his own words. And maybe this moment will wake him up. But I do not like the fact that this person, and they got him, came at this man and his family, but came at him even if he didn't have a family. They came at him this way because it's him today. It could be a politician that you guys like tomorrow. This is not how we should. Now, this is who we are now, but this is not how we have to be. And this is not how we should comport ourselves. So no, I could never say that. There are lots of people who don't like me. They don't like my politics. And I know you and Jen would not be happy if somebody came, at me like that or anybody else.
Okay. Trust me. I will never forget how the Zion Nazis came at you. And I will never forget that moment when you broke down in Jen's arms, and that pissed me off.
It was sad. I mean, they were horrible.
Yes, that's true. But we also have to recognize that the human spirit can only withstand so much. You can only be stomped on so many times. You saw constantly throughout many a generation, especially in the Black communities, especially in the Deep South, where they would always tell you, do not fight back, because eventually the people will see that you are right and they won't tolerate it anymore. But there's always outliers. There's always that person who says, I don't want to turn my other cheek to that cracker anymore. I can't do it. I'm not beneath them. And unfortunately, we have developed a system. This is a case system in many ways. The reflection of the average person who looks at what's going on in Gaza, for example, is no different than how they look at people in redlined and block-busted communities all over this country. Yeah, they're not worth it anyway. Yeah, they're not. Who cares about them? They're just cannon fodder anyway. Let them go work in a coal factory in Appalachia. Let them go work on the Keystone Pipeline up in, the Dakotas. Because they do see this as a means to an end. It's like the system must continue. If we have to have casualties, then that's acceptable.
I mean, it's definitely the same energy, but Peter, you and I are gonna have to disagree on whether or not, yes, the human spirit can only take so much. I get all of that. I would still say to people who are fighting a system that, by the way, is not immutable. It was created. We can recreate it. We can create a different one. And so we shouldn't tolerate this kind of stuff. That I don't want to see any individual come after an elected official in the way that this person did. I just don't. And as far as Black people in the South and all of that, there were Black leaders who had a different opinion about that. Remember, Minister Malcolm X was not for the turning of the other cheek and all that. Now, he never advocated violence. He advocated self-defense.
It's by any means necessary. It's by any means necessary.
By any means, but using all resources available. He did not advocate violence, though. The history is wrong on that. What he said to Black people is defend yourself, and that I won't be turning no cheek. If you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. The strategy of the civil rights movement, I think, is misinterpreted. Yes, part of it was if people see the violence and the brutality, it's going to force America to wake up. It takes a certain type of discipline to do what those civil rights leaders, both known and unknown, were able to do. It takes a certain amount of discipline to sit at a lunch counter and see a rabid white mob pour hot coffee on you or spit on you or call you the N-word and kick on you and do all the things that we were able to see. Now, they had the benefit of TV. Because I don't think, it started to move people to see it, but I think some people were moved more out of embarrassment and not necessarily moved to make the deep-seated change that was necessary in the United States of America. But that is a strategy, that is a tactic. It takes great discipline to be able to do that. That is different, very different from somebody deciding that they don't like an elected official or a leader that much that you're going to try to blow them up, both individually or burn down their house, individually or with a family. So I'm saying, as much as my people have suffered in this country, as much as I have personally suffered and been vilified for standing up for justice, I don't agree with Governor Shapiro on most of his political leanings. I would never want that done to him or anybody else.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely gets us nowhere.
I mean, in my mind, like, I agree. Like, that's not something I'm doing. Like I've always said, I'm not armed. But I am not someone that has nothing left to lose yet. And every one of these policy decisions that is creating more and more people that have nothing left to lose, that's what's going to happen. So it isn't that I think it's a good plan. I have been saying this since we started this show. They cannot build their moats wide enough. And that isn't because I myself am going to go out armed and hurt somebody. It's because I can read the tea leaves. And the people who are seeing stuff like that, like, honestly, I don't know who did that to him and whether or not we find out or what the investigation is. But, like, for example, if my Palestinian family or my Russian family or whatever was annihilated and I'm watching this guy doing what he does and advocating for complete violence across the entire globe, and then you killed my family, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's like, this is where they're pushing us. And the level of violence is determined by the oppressor, not by the oppressed.
I get more than one thing can be true at once.
Yes.
While I do understand what you and Peter are saying, and a lot of people feel that way, I'm saying that I don't believe that that is the way to do it. It is not the way to do it. But for every action, as we learned in science, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. There's going to have to be a wake-up call in this country. I don't know what else it's going to take to have one, but I got to make it very clear to your audience, I'm not down with what happened to Governor Shapiro.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you two are down. You just stating facts here, but I'm not down with it. And before I need to get back to Congressman Khanna just real quick. Now, he was in my home city, Cleveland, Ohio today. He spoke at the City Club of Cleveland, which has been around for about well over 100 years, talking about a type of patriotism that is not linked to wealth, that we need to move in a direction that lifts people, working class people, and I'm paraphrasing him. He is, I mean, I was co-chair with him on Senator Sanders' campaign, as you both know, and the congressman and I have been knowing each other for a while. We can have hard conversations with each other, and we do behind the scenes. Sometimes you got to call people up and not call them out. And him and I have been friends for quite a while and deepened that friendship serving on Senator Sanders' 2020 campaign as co-chairs. The message that he sent today, how he called out the Trump administration and you know, Vance included, all of them, I think is important for people like him. Peter, you're right. He could be doing anything, and he is doing this. He is somebody that could be swayed even more. He does take unpopular positions that are different from his mainline Democrat colleagues from time to time. And I got to applaud him for that. That doesn't mean him and I agree on every little thing, but I don't believe to be in relationship with somebody that I have to always 100% agree. What I want to be able to do is always pick up the phone and tell you how I see things, and you can tell me why you did what you did, and either we can agree or agree to disagree. I want your audience to know that Congressman Ro Khanna is that kind of person where other people would not care, you know, in that sphere of what somebody like Senator Nina Turner has to say. Congressman Ro Khanna does, and we've been rocking with each other, and I really appreciate him. So he did a great job here in Cleveland. He's traveling the state. Is traveling the country, obviously. Yeah. And we need people like him that we can pick up the phone and have a conversation with.
He's only one of 2 sitting congresspeople that has come on our show.
Yeah. See, I believe it. He's not afraid to go anywhere. He'll talk to almost anybody. So I just want to applaud him. I got it, Peter. I understand what you're saying. Nobody's perfect, not even me, who you guys love.
No, I definitely agree. I think we've gotten to the point where it is an all or nothing proposition for people that have given up on the system. Yeah. What I will say in Roe's defense, because we know what he's up to, and if he is going to run for governor, he would be the one Democrat in California that I do think would have the type of gravitas and perhaps the amount of credibility on the Democratic Party that would even be worth supporting. We have been very adamant about the fact that we do support Butch Ware, who is running in the Green Party ticket.
I know Dr. Ware. Yeah.
Yep, he's good people. And I think one of the true benefits to him running is that you're never going to force the Democratic Party's hand unless there's an alternative that's outside the party that actually has juice. You know, one of the false, one of the, I would consider non-starters, if you will, going back, it's amazing how long we've known each other. But, you know, going back to the summer of 2016 and being in that church 2 days before the convention and with you and Dr. Stein, and obviously all that's evolved ever since that moment. You come here now and anyone is asking, well, why should we fight within the Democratic Party and not be fighting outside of that? Whether you fight within electoral politics is an argument for another day. I think elections do matter. I think it depends on how you go about it is more important. And I think local elections matter more than anything else. But if you are going to be supporting somebody within the party infrastructure, I think today especially, you know, because Roe is obviously very good at raising money. If you are going to go down this road, I think people need to understand that the only salvation that the Democratic Party will ever have or ever see again is if somebody is actually going to put their foot down about very specific issues. Gaza, non-starter. Endless war, including Ukraine, and ultimately, you know, whether it happens with China or not, non-starter. Single-payer healthcare, non-starter. If you are going to be the governor of California, you have to say, I will sign CalCare into law if I am the chief executive of the state of California. These are the little things that somebody has to just take that leap of faith and say, I'm going to go with this, instead of the statement that Katie Porter unfortunately put out there just a week ago. At some point, somebody has to say, we're going to make a clean break. It doesn't mean we're leaving the Democratic Party, but we're making a clean break from the neoliberalism that has dominated this party for the past 2 decades. So do you see the validity in people choosing to go the path of supporting somebody like Butch Ware? And do you still feel that if the Democratic Party is going to be salvaged in any capacity, there has to be some type of a clean break? And if somebody like Roe is willing to do it at the gubernatorial level, perhaps it's possible, but you can also understand why people have given up on the 2-party system at this point. Would you say that would be fair to say?
Duopoly is a complete failure. It's an epic fail. It serves no one but itself. These people eat from the same trough, and it's called corporate power. That's really, there's no difference. It's just a difference on how they put it out into the world, how they operate versus, it's the difference between the fox and the wolf. That's all this is, but it's the same. Both of them going to attack you. And I want people in this country to vote for whoever they want to vote for. That's what a representative democracy is about. And it's just an asinine idea that over 300 million people, that two parties could fulfill the needs of over 300 million people. The duopoly only works for two private corporations, and that's the Democrats and the Republicans. The duopoly does not work for the everyday people of this nation. And there is an awakening at this moment. We see the town halls. It's not just Republicans now too scared to go to their own town halls because their Republican voters are asking the question, what the hell are you doing? The same thing is happening at Democratic town halls too, asking Democrats, what the hell did you do? And what are you doing right now? Why don't you have the intestinal fortitude or the ovarian audacity to put up a fight? It's kind of hard for them to put up a fight because two things that people really despise: liars and hypocrites. And the Democratic Party has proven itself to be a bit of both.
Yeah.
Especially on the hypocrisy side, when they had the opportunity to truly change material conditions for people in this country. You know, I think about when I went down to East Palestine, and I talked to you both about this, and I went down there immediately went down there about an hour and a half away from Cleveland, Ohio. And the most shocking thing of this poor and working class community that in 2020 voted almost 90% for President Donald J. Trump. I don't have their stats for 2024, but let's just assume they kept the pattern. The most shocking thing when they saw me down there was not that I'm Black from a distance, that I'm an African-American woman from a distance. You know what the most shocking thing was? That a Democrat came down there to see them. It took Secretary Buttigieg 10 days while he was on TV talking all kinds of smack. And it took President Biden almost a year to get there. President Trump went right there. Say what you want about this man. He is using power in a way that is destructive. Don't get me wrong. But one thing he does know how to do is to use power. And the Democratic Party needs to understand how to use power to benefit the everyday people in this country and stop making excuses. You know what I would have did to Manchin and Sinema? I would have gassed up the jet. I double dog dare you to stand against me for policies that are going to help the everyday people of this country. That's what I would have done. Single payer, you know, universal health care, all of that. They did none of that. He could have signed all kinds of executive orders, do away with student debt when he had the opportunity. So again, President Donald J. Trump is doing a disservice to everyday people in this country. He is weaponizing the presidency. He has absolute power because the Congress has totally abdicated its responsibility to be a constitutional check on executive power. The man is threatening judges. You know what I mean? But the Democrats brought this on. And it wasn't just the one Biden. It was all the way back to even at that book that you're reading. See, yeah. That there's a connection to the last election, to the last. None of this stuff happened in a vacuum. But in most recently, if we want to make it recent for our viewers, 2016. Anytime you thwart the people's will and process in the way that Democrats did, and then you want to talk about how the Republican Party doesn't care about democracy. Well, Democrats, neither do you, because I'm old enough to remember how they sued to keep Dr. Cornel West off ballots in this country, Dr. Jill Stein off ballots, Congressman Dean Phillips, who was the only actively elected person who had the courage to actually run against President Biden. You know, Marianne Williamson, you guys know where I'm coming. And I bet your viewers know, our viewers, I bet you they know too. So yeah. You cannot say that the Republicans are disrupting democracy with meanwhile back at the ranch, you doing similar things.
Yeah.
You're just doing it under the cloak of night, where the Trump and MAGA and GOP crew, they got the nerve to do it right all up in our face.
I think it's funny. I've noticed the difference is the GOP tends to do stuff like, you know, purge voter rolls. You know, they've got their own methods of sort of screwing elections, but they don't have super delegates. And they don't they actually have primaries, and they actually will have, they will have conflict within and kind of work that shit out. Like, I feel like the better opportunity, and I hate to say this, for us to see any sort of working class party, I think it's going to end up being some sort of offshoot of who are now in the Republicans that might have originally been Bernie people that are just done with the Democrats. And they have since become Republicans because they cannot deal with the neoliberal elitist bullshit, but they're not really Republicans either. They're just working people. But at least in the Republican Party, they'll take a stand against their own people. Like, you even saw that with the Matt Gaetz. I mean, and look, and again, I don't agree with them on anything, but they seem to be more democratic within their structure.
Yeah.
And then the Democrats, instead of, they don't purge voter rolls. Democrats just sue to keep candidates off of ballots.
Right.
And then use super delegates. So it's the same.
Or triple team progressives like us.
Right.
So instead of fighting the GOP, they put more energy fighting progressives. I mean, Hakeem Jeffrey Pack came into my race. I'm not sure if they came into yours, but they came into my race. They came and campaigned against me in my state.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neoliberals.
Right. And now when they need your help, they're going to wonder why no one is actually picking up the phone for them anymore.
Nobody coming for that. I'm not coming for more of the same. As I said, I think they all should go.
Well, don't you ever forget who's actually responsible for starting this problem in the first place. I did a really great job, and I got really filthy rich as a result. But Hillary didn't get the grass ring. So.
And what about Obama? He got pretty friggin' rich too.
He did. They all did. They all get rich.
Okay, now listen. I don't. If people do it a certain way, I mean, we can have a whole conversation about the Black community and wealth. Okay, but what I do have a problem with is a president who is so beloved in that way, seeing the challenges of this nation and particularly in the Black community. I want to see President Obama step up more and do more with that power and that cachet that he has. Now, people amassing wealth for the sake of it and thinking they're going to leave everybody else behind. No, I'm not down for that. But when we want to talk about wealth building and the fact that the Black community has the least amount of wealth of any group in the United States of America, how can that be when literally we built this country by force, but we built it? We got to have a reckoning. We're talking about class. We can't talk about class without talking about caste. And as we're, because I know my time with you all are winding down, at least for this session, I want to shout out and make sure that people know that the Target boycott, I'm hoping that more people will continue to join it, not to buy from Target. You got other choices. I know Target is not the only company that is not doing right, but the CEO of Target made it his business after the death of George Floyd to say that George Floyd could have been one of his employees. He made it his business to make a pledge to the Black community and then by extension, other communities of color. But he was very clear about the Black community and what Target was going to do. And then in walks Donald J. Trump. And then all of a sudden, what you said in 2020 doesn't matter anymore. Were you doing it for real or were you playing games? And so I, along with Until Freedom, that is led by Tamika Mallory, and also we got Pastor Jamal Bryant rocking the Target fast. I want our viewers to look into that. Boycott Target. Target is only the first of the boycotts. We need to boycott these companies if they don't believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. I mean, what is wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion? We need to let them know that there's power in our purchase and we should not go for it. And so it's Target today. It's going to be somebody else tomorrow. I want to give some stats. As of April 14th of 2025, Target Corporation's stocks closed at $94.65. Now, February the 4th, it was at $135, kept ticking all the way down. And as of April 14th, it is at $94.65. It is a 30% drop over the last 2.5 months. What it is showing is that there's power in our purchase. We have got to start making examples of these corporate entities that want to cave to bigotry. Because that's all they doing. They caving to bigotry. If diversity, equity, and inclusion was the right thing to do in 2020, it is the right thing to do in 2025. And we got to show the type of solidarity with working class people and with the Black community in particular. This needs to be done. So listen, please, you got other choices. You do not have to shop at Target. We got to make an example of somebody. And it's making me, remember what happened in the Montgomery bus boycott, 381 days. And we're not asking anybody to walk to work. We're not asking anybody to carpool, get called into the office and be threatened with your job or an inch of your life, ran off the road, all kinds of things that the white power structure did against Black people and their white allies during the Montgomery bus boycott in the 1950s. All we're asking people to do is to shop somewhere else.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better. And when you're done with Target, let's move on to Walmart because they really need to be next. It pays to buy local, shop small. We emphasize that a lot. And the fact that you are leading that fight says a lot. And we know that you're not going to stop. You're one of the truly bright lights that we have had the pleasure of encountering since this whirlwind experience started in the spring of 2015.
Yes.
It will
continue.
It's
been that long. It's been 10
years.
It's been a decade. Yeah. It's amazing how fast time goes. And what will the next decade hold? Well, I'd like to think that for a lot of us, for the millions of us, quite frankly, that we're a lot more refined. We have a lot more of an understanding now of how all of this racket works. You were in the state Senate in the state of Ohio, and at the time, a very monumental swing state, to say the least. So you had a lot of knowledge about how all of this works that you tried to espouse to millions of people out there to say, it's not as simple as you think. There is a lot of moving parts. And that is why it is of immense importance that we continue these conversations. And we know people in the chat, many agree, many don't. And that's okay.
We have the diverse chat.
We do. But having this conversation is more important than telling people, I don't want to talk to that person because they don't agree with me 100%.
That's right.
We're never going to play that game. If you're on board with where we're at today, which is an economic catastrophe of the highest order, which crosses racial lines, which crosses cultural lines, which crosses sex lines, men, women, etc.
All the lines.
All of them. This is a class war, nothing more, and we have to stick together. I know we didn't get to talk about it at great length, but thank you for being a loud and provocative voice in some cases regarding what is going on in Gaza. We are going to have an extensive podcast that you're probably going to want to check out on Thursday. The gentleman, Steve Selsby, who runs Heal Palestine, he will be here. So thank you, Nina, for always being on the right side of history and for always continuing to be a great friend. We don't have a lot of them out there in politics, as you know, because there's not many, but you're one of them. And we're extremely grateful that you came on tonight, as always.
I'm grateful for you too.
Love seeing you.
You've been on the journey for a long time, and hopefully I'll be back in a month or two. I would love to come on and really talk about the freedom budget in a deeper way for all Americans. It's important.
You can always come on.
I know.
You can always come on here. We're just here.
Well, we'll plan something out. Maybe we'll have a little mini panel or something like that.
That would be really, really good. All right. All the best and all the best to your viewers. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys encourage diversity of opinion and debate. It's good. We don't need everybody to always agree. We just need to be able to understand each other. That's what we're working towards, understanding.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you for always taking us to church. We love you.
I love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. One of our favorites, one of the special people.
You know, she's lovely.
Yes.
You know, I always have to.
And yes, guys, accept the fact that not everybody's going to cut bait. And one thing that I do want to point out here, because I didn't want to get into it with Nina, not at the end of the conversation, but you are absolutely right, David Hunter, and I was not aware of this. And this is something that if Roe is going to run for governor of California, and we all think he is, this is something that cannot be ignored. The fact of the matter is he does do certain elements of insider trading. There is no getting around that. He is not the most guilty party, but he is a very wealthy man, and he represents, I don't know if it's the #1 district in the country, Jen, but I believe
he's Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, Roe represents one of the top 5, I believe, wealthiest districts.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that is a problem. So, am I understanding this correct? That Khanna was out speaking about what Trump was doing as far as the oligarch situation and the people in his office. Okay. How dare he do that when he is over his head in insider trading? Like that's just more infuriating. And I wasn't gonna like get into this with Nina, and the truth is I do appreciate many things that Khanna has done, but where do you get off criticizing oligarchs when you're insider trading?
And this
like
is
that is a hypocrisy at a whole other level for him.
And this is the thing about electoral politics that people have to remember, because Roe has spoken out against the genocide, but that's not everything. And if you're trying to be the governor of California, the most populous state in the nation, because he's clearly going to run, and if he is, especially for governor, especially if he does not care, if I'll give him a lot of credit, if he's going to run a straight campaign for governor and he's going to do it in lieu of the fact that Kamala, I believe almost assuredly is going to run.
I don't think he'll run against Kamala, but continue.
We'll see.
Okay. We will see. I don't think any of them will run against her.
Do you know who didn't buy $3 million worth of Palantir stock?
Butch Ware?
Ware didn't buy $3 million worth of Palantir stock. In fact, if Roe does run for governor, he's going to use that against him, and he should. We have to get to a point where this is just not accepted anymore. And
that would be an interesting debate. That would at least be somewhat of a good debate. I mean, Butch Ware and Kamala Harris would be silly. But Butch Ware and Khanna would be at least interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a bad look to be speaking out on some friggin' high horse about oligarchy when you are huge into insider trading. Like that, to me, it's you project a little too much there.
You know, Sable, the one thing I'll say about Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's been very consistent about the genocide in Gaza. Kudos to her. Obviously, it's an America First policy that she's fighting on. But make no mistake, this is the same thing that Jen used to talk about when she was running against Debbie. Debbie would always latch on to the gun issue, to the NRA. I don't take any NRA money. I take money from everybody else.
But not them. Right.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. They try to find this one little nuanced crevice within the system to say, well, I'm not corrupted by those people. I'm corrupted by everybody else, but not those guys. So you can rely on me for that. You get to a point where that's just not going to fly anymore. We're all seasoned veterans now.
It works with some of the older libs, though. So the people down here, which the ones, and honestly, they deserve Debbie here. But like her people here, for example, they don't mind that she does insider trading. They don't really care. They don't care that she takes PAC money. They don't care that she takes corporate money. These are the people that actually would say something, well, Debbie doesn't take NRA money, and that would matter to them. But that group of people is a very small little group of very privileged people. Most people, it's just not going to work anymore because
Tammy,
if you're taking corporate money, you're perpetuating the system.
And Tammy, this is the reason why you're wrong. Because if you want somebody to actually fight for universal health care, there is no way that that could be done when the entire system is predicated on whether it's insider trading or not. Obviously, insider trading plays a role. We have a for-profit health system that has publicly traded stocks in healthcare. So
I'll tell you what. Well, okay, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, this idea that it doesn't matter if they're insider trading or not, that's bullshit.
Okay, so what I was going to say to Tammy is, Tammy, if you could find a congressperson that supports single-payer healthcare and also does insider trading, I would be shocked. I would actually be shocked.
Khanna.
Yeah, but does he support single-payer healthcare?
He does. He does.
He says he does. And this is honestly, people who say they support single-payer healthcare within the safety of the bubble, knowing that they're never going to have to vote on it, is a very different story. Because a lot of people have said, "Oh yeah, sure, I'd support that," because they know that they don't ever have to. That's not being a proponent of something. That is not what I'm talking about. So I actually am talking about, if you ever see somebody being a proponent of single-payer healthcare that also does insider trading, I would just be very curious who that is.
And this is why these issues come about. And we are appreciative for all of you that are here. And if you are so inclined to support our small but mighty channel, make sure you get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel.
Did you run our people? Oh, we have a new people.
We have new people.
Hold on.
Jen's gotta
I
put 'em
got to
in.
look it up. I got to look it up. I got to look
I'm
it
going to
up.
let you all know. S. Jera, thank you very much for the 99 super sticker. We really appreciate it. Donald Hartman, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate your support. Mark J, thank you for the $2. Thank you to 3 amazing people. Thank you so much for the kind words. Really appreciate it. Yellowbite, great to see you, and thank you for the $4.99. AOC running the show for progressives would do more worse than good. Also, the left should give up on gun control. It's not popular across the nation. Well, it's true. It's not. It's the problem is that, as we've said, the Democratic Party has become an exceptionally regional party. The one thing that they do have over Republicans is that they have more billionaires and they have more money. It doesn't mean that they win, but it becomes a lot harder to run for office. And the one thing that we didn't discuss with Nina that I would have discussed, this is the thing, it's amazing how fast an hour goes by when you're talking to Nina Turner. But the one thing that cannot be disputed, for those of you in the chat who are looking for a reason to support, let's say, the Green Party, instead of supporting the Democratic Party. Why are people still interested in trying to fight, like Nina is, to fix the Democratic Party? It's very simple. Building a political and economic infrastructure outside the two-party system is a task that will take a generation to do. It doesn't just happen, and it won't just happen. There's also the reliance on a lot of people that are simply within the party infrastructure that they'll simply do what they're told. There is a lot of grunt work involved. If you have never worked on a political campaign before, whether local, state, or federal, I can assure you, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of grinding work that is not sexy and it is not pretty. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people. Yeah, they tend to be, boomers, if you will. But a lot of people work within the Democratic Party infrastructure because it's already there. You need somebody to be a parliamentarian.
They count on it. They count on that, and that's why they get to keep feeding it that trough. That's the whole point of that party, is a slush fund for oligarchs and the WCCC. Yeah. And it's absurd. They have no platform that means anything. They have no mission. They stand for nothing. It's literally just a group of people sitting in there just so that we could say that there is an opposition. They're just like, they're hired, like sort of like extras on a show.
Teresa, thank you so much for the $10. And all of you guys who are supporting our channel, it really means a lot. We're doing everything we can to solve these critical issues, but even the ones that are so simple, and I wanted to bring this up, not that it's going to be a segment, we've got some more to do before we go for the evening, but I wanted to show you guys something that I showed Jen the other day. And if you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure that you do.
Which thing is this? Which one is this?
And hold on. Listen, we're getting a slew of super chats right now, so we got to stick with
here, we got to answer questions.
Yalabai, thank you for the $4.99. How do we convince conservatives, politicians to support single payer like Canadian conservatives do, where there's a lot of It's very simple. At the end of the day,
I can convince anybody to support single payer. It doesn't matter, because if they're conservative, then you just go with the economic approach.
It's the most economically feasible way to run a health system. It's not
show them the most conservative study, which was done by what was it, like
the Heritage Foundation?
Heritage Foundation.
They showed that it's the most
thing, but yeah, the most conservative think tank groups have tried.
Will save compared to the system we have now. It will save $500 billion a year on health costs, and it will cover everybody's basic needs. That's it. And it won't even end the free market. You see, there are too many people that got caught up in this notion that we are ending the free market by having a single payer system. No. You know what a single payer system does? It cuts out the for-profit middleman scum suckers who have no business being in the system to begin with. Aetna, Cigna, United, Blue Cross.
Right, like a good doctor who's getting lots and lots of patients, and they want to book out as far in advance and charge what they want to charge. If they can get away with that, that's your free market. But we don't need an insurance company in between him and his patients.
If I may laud for a moment, Jen's husband is a doctor, and he's not just any doctor. He's a pretty renowned doctor, and he's really good at what he does. And he will always be good at what he does, and he will always make a good living doing what he does. Do you know what he hates more than anything else in his career? Dealing with these for-profit middlemen blood suckers.
Managed care. Managed
The
care and the whole
number-
corporatism of healthcare. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Ever since I've met Jason and ever since I've had conversations with him, it has always been the same thing. I cannot stand this effing paperwork. This is absolutely insane. We don't need it. And it's only an excuse for the people who work on Wall Street and are in Silicon Valley that make billions of dollars every year hand over fist because they figured out a way to rig the system against everyday Americans. When we eventually wake up and realize that it is not government run, it is government funded healthcare, and that as the single payer, that is what our tax dollars, because they'll print the money, we will have healthcare, and then we as taxpayers will actually have a say in how our money is spent. Imagine that. We would actually like to use it on healthcare instead of bombs. Imagine that. I would think that's pretty common sense, Jen. Am I asking for too much?
No, I mean, the thing is that there are definitely certain niche doctors that may like this system for how it works for them because they're able to feed off of it. And there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of like Medicare scam and a lot of shit that goes on with the way the system works. And there are doctors, like there are in any other field, that are not as scrupulous and they take advantage of it. But most doctors are so incredibly frustrated with having to deal with managed care and would be very happy to not have to deal with that. And not only that, but doctors' offices have staffs, full staffs that are there just to be dealing with managed care. So that's not what they want to be doing with their time. It really isn't. None of this is what they want to be doing with their time. You know how ridiculous it is for someone who has been practicing medicine for, oh my God, 22 years to get permission to do shit? Seriously, that's so, it's degrading.
And let me also
by people, by the way, that aren't doctors. That's the thing. Yeah.
And let me assure you that in the investment world, one of the advantages you have versus government is that you are actually revered if you're somebody who has a track record. That matters. There's a lot of red tape that goes away because you have a track record. In the government with health, no such thing. It's an excuse to perpetuate a broken system, period. Now, one thing I did want to bring up, which I think is important. One of the big issues that we face when we talk about runaway oligarchic capitalism, and there are very few places in the United States where we have succumbed to this broken system of neoliberalism worse than in Southeast Florida. One of the things that protects the environment, particularly when it comes to floods, when it comes to building destruction, which we've seen not just in Surfside, but in a lot of places now, is an environmental plant called mangroves. Now, many people don't know what these are, but I'm going to show you very quickly because
did you know there's three different mangroves? There's white, red, and black. Anyway, continue.
Well, you are a native Floridian.
I know my mangroves. Continue.
So one thing that I want you all to see, because when you talk about the impact that we have on the environment, even though there are people who think that, when we talk about man-made climate change, this is an example of man-made climate change.
I've seen this experiment. It's so good.
Do you know what this is?
Yeah, well, it's a science experiment. So what this demonstrates, but you're not seeing it without it. Well, you're seeing how the waves, right? So you see how the waves are getting stopped by the mangroves. The mangroves protect the shoreline. The mangroves protect, and more importantly, they protect the estuaries. And people who don't know, estuaries are where all the little critters come from. That's where all the frogs and crabs, and they all go and lay their eggs in these little estuaries. They're just little ecosystems. But the mangroves keep our shoreline from being completely flooded and eroded. And that is what they do. So, I mean, this is just one of those. I've seen this kind of thing in a science museum before where it demonstrates how the mangroves protect the land.
In South Florida, particularly in the city of Fort Lauderdale, we have let's just call him what he is, an extremely corrupt mayor in Dean Trantillis.
Oh,
This is a person who is very tight with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he's also very tight with Elon Musk, who intended to build an underground in South Florida, mind you, an underground.
and people think Musk is a really smart and like engineering kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. And this was initially going to be done just for Tesla drivers to get from one side of Fort Lauderdale out to A1A, where all the rich people live. And this, of course, was a completely insane idea. I don't know if it's completely been curtailed, but most people don't want any part of it. However, because of the constant dredging of the water lines to never stop building, and this is a much bigger problem, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, in blue areas.
Are you going to connect Dean Trantillis to the mangrove somehow? Is there some connection to, like, because you're showing the cool video of how the mangroves protect the coast. I'm not exactly sure where you're going with this.
What I'm saying is the mangroves are an essential part of our environmental makeup, especially in South Florida. Unfortunately, because of the constant dredging and overdevelopment, the mangroves are being destroyed in places like Fort Lauderdale, in places like Hollywood. This is a big environmental catastrophe that is only going to get worse. And this is 100% man-made.
Yeah, well, and this is something that's been going on here for years. So what'll happen is, it was a few years back that there was this giant new yacht marina that was being dredged over in Fort Lauderdale. And let's be real, these are for wealthy people. We're not a little fishing town. You know, this isn't like some Portuguese fishing town where it's serving working people. So they're dredging up for this yacht marina. And those developers are always supposed to replant. And it isn't just mangroves, it's also sea grapes. But they're supposed to replant in other areas and do other things, just like developers are supposed to allow for, you know, development of schools and stuff. But like that, they don't do it. They get the breaks, they get the subsidies, they build what they're going to build, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. And that happens all the time. And there's no enforcement. There's no none of that. There's none of that. And it's just pathetic. And what they've done is they've totally demolished the coastline. It's bad enough that we don't have dunes in most places. Now, Hollywood has started some sort of project. I don't know like where they are with that, where they've been, you know, bringing back having dunes. But yeah, no, they just keep ripping out the mangroves. That's all they keep. That's all they want to do is just rip out all those pesky trees. But yeah, all the, you know, look, the majority of people that are going to suffer from this, the majority of people that will suffer from this literally on the coast are going to be the people in those high rises and those buildings that they'll inevitably not be able to live in. But you know, c'est la vie.
Mangione monetary theory.
I'm telling you, and I get what Nina's saying. I didn't used to be a supporter of violence. Like I didn't ever feel like that. And I'm angry that I feel angry, but I'm so angry. And I'm angry that I feel violent. And yeah, I do. But I got to tell you, like when I heard that someone set his house on fire, yeah, I didn't care. I don't give a shit. I really don't give a shit. And the nerve on him to stand there and saying we won't talk, like violence isn't the answer, while yet it was signed.
It's okay it's okay when you do it. It's not like, okay when somebody else does.
I just can't. And the truth is these people are going to learn the hard way.
They are.
You know, when Nina says things, and I agree with her, this isn't the choice. The choice would have been voting for Bernie. See, that was the choice. That was the compromise. And now we are where we are. And I also, again, would reiterate that I think that there is a lot of things that are violent that are being done that aren't necessarily what we would traditionally think of as violence. And people like Josh Shapiro are completely perpetrating violence on a daily basis. They are. They're perpetrating it and they're condoning it just by their existence and how they function in this world and by signing and agreeing to things that are killing people. So I don't see it as, oh, well, we're not going to have violence. Oh, we are. And it's just getting started. And again, I'm not the violent. I'm unarmed.
Yalabite, thank you so much for the $1.99. Look,
exactly, Philip. And yeah,
this is
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean
No,
to
it's
do
okay.
that.
And genocide is violence. This should come as no surprise, because now people are starting to see just how corrupt our government really is. Now, granted, South Florida is a specific level of corruption that is not seen nearly as much around the country. South Florida is very unique in a lot of ways. It's very transient. It's very international. And there is kind of an acceptance of its corrupt undertaking. I mean, listen, Miami is a city built on white powder, and you could take with that what you want, but it's the truth. And there's also a lot to be said for,
which is why it was better before that all happened, which is why prior to like the late 70s or whatever 70s, it wasn't like that.
Changed everything. It changed everything. It wasn't just
it was that, it was the cocaine, it was a lot of it. But, there was a point when Miami was kind of, there were the townies and then you had the tourists, and it was that vibe. There was a time when the Fort Lauderdale airport was like a strip, like a little airstrip.
Chip, thank you so much for the $5. Great to see you. Trump was the lesser of two. I agree. I think Trump is the lesser of two evils between him and Kamala, and there's many reasons for that. If Kamala had been elected, it isn't so much that the aggressive right wing would have grown and would have thrived. It's a question of, if you think censorship is bad now,
exactly.
Kamala Harris was the ultimate puppet president, would have done everything that the deep state asked her to do. And we would have been, I shut at the idea of what it would have been like if she was in charge. At least with Trump in charge, you actually have a commander-in-chief where the buck pretty much stops with him. I'm sure there's decisions that he doesn't make arbitrarily on his own, but it never hurts when you actually, it's totally like he embraces the idea of being the king. He wants everyone to know that the buck stops with me. Like I'm calling the shots here. And there are people who kind of revere that notion because they don't have to question who's pulling the trigger. In some ways, that's somewhat cathartic because for the most part, we don't know who the hell's calling any shots. We certainly didn't when Biden was president. We certainly wouldn't have if Kamala had gotten there. I didn't see what Mr. Beautiful Day said, but I'm sure it wasn't good. Now,
what I just deleted?
Yes.
Oh, because that's a troll that trolls one of our people. It's somebody who's using their picture.
If you want to come after us, you could do it all day, every day.
No. It's one of our regular people who's in the chat. It's somebody who uses like a leaked photo of them and does it to like go after them in chats. It's just weird. And whenever I see the picture, I'll try to delete it when I catch it.
Brian, Jen, well, we always appreciate that. And at the end of the day,
I'm not a Dem anymore.
No. I'm technically registered as a Democrat, but
I'm no party affiliation.
It doesn't really serve anything. I mean, we all know how to do this, and I agree, Phil. It would have inspired less opposition.
Absolutely,
thing is a means to an end, and that's what people want to do. Think about how badly Kamala could be doing right now, and how all of the privileged women in this country would have been on their soapboxes talking about how great it is that we have a commander-in-chief that's a madam, instead of talking about the horrific policies that I have no doubt would have been even worse regarding Gaza right now, because they would have been completely brushing it under the rug. The one thing about Trump, everything's out in the open.
I know, it's mask off now, man. That's why it's like, oh yeah.
And the one thing about Americans, guys, you can call us ignorant, you can call us arrogant, and we are those things and then some. But we don't like having that shoved in our face. And that's one of the reasons why Trump is making a big mistake regarding Gaza. Or maybe that's his plan. Who the hell knows? But people don't like having it shoved in their face. And so when you go too far, you are going to ultimately have a backlash. One of the biggest, if not the biggest backlash that we have right now is with Luigi Mangione. And credit to Luigi, because he is fighting back right now. And he has called out Attorney General Pam Bondi, calling it a political stunt, which it most certainly is. And It's also brought up the fact that even if they were to convict him on first-degree murder, Luigi Mangione will be a martyr. There will be somebody who will be smart enough to run for president in 2028 who will say, I will pardon Luigi Mangione. Do you know what kind of support that person's going to get? Substantial, to say the least. But we came across this story, which is not being talked about, and I think you're all going to get a kick out of it. Luigi Mangione has inspired the debut of an off-Broadway revenge show. So get a load of this, guys, because this is interesting.
What is this?
Fat Cat Killers is the name of the new off-Broadway comedy about two laid-off employees who kidnap their former CEO and attempt to spark a nationwide workplace uprising. Opens later this month in NoHo, a neighborhood in downtown Manhattan. I'd say that's pretty interesting, Jen. How about you?
That is kind of interesting. Surprised. Yeah, well, I'm not really surprised that somebody would do it. I'm surprised that it was able to be put on, that it was able to be actually, produced.
Producer, speaking of which, Christopher Lee, what a perfect name, who also stars in the show, was reading the script last December when news broke that someone had shot and killed a healthcare CEO in Midtown. Luigi Mangione is accused of the crime, and the federal government is seeking the death penalty if he is convicted. I had CNN on in the background, and it almost like the newsfeed was part of the play. I was like, this play has to be done right now. There's never been a better time for an audience to sit down and follow this story. Fat Cats was written more than 10 years ago, but Lee said the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson played a direct role in his decision to stage it now.
Nice.
I texted Adam Simowitz, let's hope he's an anti-Zionist, the playwright, and I was like, do you see what's on the news right now? He sent the script to the director he was interested in working with, Adam Block, and they started pre-production a month later. Well, I got to tell you, I would be pretty motivated to go to New York and see this off-Broadway show. Heck, one of the great reasons to go to an off-Broadway production, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And very often, even though you're not going to get megastars like Bob Odenkirk and Bill Burr and Kieran Culkin, yes, I would like to see Glenn Ross, but let me tell you, it's going to have to be the second go-around because the ticket prices are absolutely insane. Average ticket is like $400 a person. But at an off-Broadway show like this, I guarantee you it's not only going to be entertaining, but it's probably going to be like $40-50 a head. That's much more reasonable.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when this opens.
What type of a reaction? Listen, there is a substantial amount of what I would call responsibility on their part to get this right. To get this right, get the right publicity, and have a really strong message and really strong acting. Because if they do, it could have a big impact.
Let's explain to Freedom House that it's not ridiculous. If you're new here, the argument is that Kamala would be worse than Trump, and that's just ridiculous. Agree to disagree. I don't think so. I think that would just be a slow escalator ride to hell as opposed to the free fall we're in now. Make no mistake, that's where we're going. And at the end of the day, all the people that are now so uproarious that came out and are actually giving a shit now, none of those people would be paying attention if Kamala had won. They didn't give a shit before, and they only care because Trump's doing it. And by the way, Biden, same shit. Obama, same shit. They've all been doing the same shit over and over and over, deporting, drone bombing, killing people, stealing the money for their little friends, all the same. The only difference is Kamala would do it with a, we're full of joy. I'd rather get a knife in the chest than in the back. Like, I'd like to see it coming. You know what I'm saying?
I will use Jen's famous thesaurus word, caucasity, when describing somebody like Kamala going around on a I told you so tour.
In what universe is Donald? You know what? This is ridiculous. You clearly are just, I don't know why you're here. There is no universe where I have seen where Donald Trump is a child rapist. And Kamala Harris, I've seen infinite evidence, slept her way to get the position that she got at the top of that food chain and was one of the worst prosecutors and one of the worst people to be in that position.
100%. And not only that, but Freedom House, listen, you can say all you want about Donald Trump, and all these things are correct, that Donald Trump is a sleazy guy. There has never been one flight log, not one, that has ever been disclosed that he actually went to that island. Did he
No.
have a relationship with Epstein? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Of course, scumbag's gonna
question
scumbag.
about it.
Yeah.
Bill
Yeah,
Clinton-
we're done. We're done with that because that's just silly unless you have evidence of something. And at the end of the day, we could just say agree to disagree.
Yeah. There is no, and here's the thing. When you think about, as Tammy points out, when you think about the things that certain people are willing to do in order to get the brass ring, Kamala Harris was willing to take on children in Oakland, where they're already struggling enough as it is in the inner city, and they were throwing them into prison for truancy violations. And this was, in many cases—
Oh my God. Freedom House. You have to stop
parents.
obsessing about Epstein. There's infinitely more things besides Epstein. Go look up Kamala shit. Go away. Go look up Kamala shit. We don't have time for this.
And again, as we've said, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. At the end of the day, if Trump is pulling the levers of power, there is infinitely more people that are paying attention to the unfolding of the broken system that's happening at this moment that would otherwise not give two shits if Kamala was in power. And the one thing I am firmly confident on, and we had Matt Taibbi on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago on this matter. If Kamala got into the White House, if you thought censorship was bad now, you have no idea how hard they would have cracked down if she was there. And especially if you had people talk shit about Trump on social media all the time. There are people talk about killing Trump on social media all the time. If there were people talking the same type of shit about Kamala Harris, let me assure you, beyond any doubt, there would have been a crackdown the likes of which you can't even imagine. Because she's a puppet.
Okay, Freedom House, you're in the wrong place. You know what? No offense. It's not you. It's us. You're in the wrong place. You're talking about January 6th. Like you need to go find your people. We're not your people.
Go to Midas Touch.
There you go.
You'll be much better on that channel.
You're not your people.
Much better there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, you're lucky that January 6th was only a protest, because it could have been a hell of a lot worse if they decided to show up armed. And that could happen any day. People still forget. The decorum politics is done. It's over.
Oh my God.
It can be manipulated to do things. Donald Trump can convince people to go to the Capitol. Do you know why? Because this is a desperate country. There are people who are just waiting for the alarm to be sounded. That's why Mangione is such a significant story right now, because he's just one, but there will be many more. That's why we talk about Mangione monetary theory. At what point does it become more commonplace that the governor of the biggest swing state in the United States now has to worry that somebody's coming for him? You think this is the last time something like this is going to happen? It's not. We are in a situation now where people cannot afford to live, cannot afford to put food on the table, cannot afford health, can't afford anything. And you're going to pass $1 trillion military budget? I mean, it's pretty obvious why things are broken.
And so that's why I say it's just going to get more and more violent. Like, keep it up. Keep pointing out that Charles Schwab is hanging out in your office. Keep pointing out how much money your friends are making. Keep letting go veterans that have PTSD. Keep it up. Keep it up. This is why I say it facilitates the revolution.
And freedom, again, electoral corruption is second nature now. We are at a point where we went through this. We went through a very similar situation. We saw in real time how the Democratic presidential primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders.
I think this is literally just like a bot troll or somebody.
Let me finish, please. We went through this. I saw how they were counting the votes in Chicago, how Bernie actually won the Illinois primary in 2016, and they fucked him over. I saw.
See, stop talking to this person, but yeah, okay, go on.
They did the same thing in Missouri, in St. Louis, where they were electioneering. The St. Louis County Democratic Party was deliberately electioneering. I saw the flyers. I saw what they did. And they rigged an election, 2 primary elections. And this was right after. Right. When did they do this? Right after Bernie won the Michigan primary, and they knew that he was in line to win the whole thing. So they had to do what they had to do. And let's not forget, if you want to talk about phony electorates, do you forget December 2016 when they did the exact same thing that Hillary Clinton had everybody go out to the Electoral College voters and tell them, switch your vote to Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump. Democracy's on the line. You have to do this for. It doesn't matter how you do it.
How about them going back to people in North Carolina when Matthew Hoh was running and telling them that they needed to change their votes?
Oh, that wonderful person, Mark Elias, the biggest lawyer in the entire Democratic Party establishment. How about that fuckhead going down to North Carolina and doing everything in his capacity to get Matthew Hoh thrown off the ballot on the Green Party? How about that? Is that election rigging? It is.
Okay, we could stop feeding the troll. Yeah, you're in the wrong place. You're not going to find your people. And what's interesting is there's a wide range of people here, and none of them will be with that.
So when people wonder why Luigi Mangione has become a major talking point in our culture, and it is on us to keep his name in the news, is because of things like this.
Yeah.
No one said that Trump is better than Kamala. We simply said that Trump, in our humble opinion, is the lesser of two evils. Considering
that's basically the same thing. Now you're talking semantics. Do I think that this is a good outcome? No, we're in a shit show.
We're stuck in the. This is Back to the Future Part 2. We are stuck on the offshoot of Biff getting the almanac.
We're in the Biff timeline. But my choice would have been Bernie. That was the compromise. The fact that people are still bemoaning that don't grasp this. And now this is what was chosen by all the people that thought Hillary was the better option. That is why we are where we are right now. That is why. We could argue as to, it doesn't, at this point, arguing who's worse is seriously a waste of time. It doesn't matter. Our democracy is non-existent. We are owned by a complete corporate horse that have just taken over. And that's what we do now. And that's what we do. We fight for scraps.
This is a very good clip that Jen sent me on Instagram the other day that I think in many ways crystallizes exactly what the problem is right now.
Democrat HQ here, and we were so excited to see you fighting on the streets for your democracy, especially since you did not mention the genocide, because that would be a no bueno.
The Fight the Oligarchy movement is not controlled opposition. Do not look up what controlled opposition means. While Trump and his cronies are ransacking our economy, it is a great time to organize and take collective action. And the Democratic Party is not attempting to absorb dissent, redirect radical energy, and preserve the status quo. And do not look up the history of NATO's war crimes. Or you may realize that the reason these signs say hands off NATO but not hands off Palestine is because acknowledging Palestine would alienate their liberal donors, their Democratic allies, and their foundational ideology of pro-imperialist progressivism.
No, we're just happy to see you all screaming no to Trump, because as long as you can be herded into supporting one of the two parties against the other, then the empire's crimes can continue unimpeded. That's why we're giving way more mass media attention to the anti-Trump protests than we are to any of the anti-genocide protests. We just want to make sure we have fighters out there like Bernie and AOC getting you to clap along to our performative show. Because if you stopped clapping along long enough to collect with your fellow workers, you might actually start organizing and create some positive change.
So what this proves...
I love this video.
Not only is this a great video, but it's a great example of how Luigi Mangione came to be and why this continues to grow. Every sign that we look at right now would suggest that the Democrats have a real opening because of the fact that there is an acceleration of the breaking down of our system in such a profound way that they would have a chance to change. What you are learning is that the two parties are basically the exact same.
Because they don't want, you're learning that it's not that they don't know what to do, it's they don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. All right, keep playing it.
Opposing the abuses are advanced by both parties like war, militarism, imperialism, capitalism, and authoritarianism. Why we loved how much you cheered for Cory Booker's impressive 25-hour speech. Trump is bad. Yeah, I said it. Trump is racist. Trump is so nasty. Oh my God, I'm getting 25 hours. You like that, right? It's wild to us that Trump is restructuring the entire government, but you're all impressed with some little speech by a man who fully supports the annihilation of the Palestinian people, even though the speech didn't stop a bill, a vote, or even a debate.
Let it go.
But I ask you, so then what was the point? And many people pointed out how it basically 24 hours after Booker gives this speech, forget all the bullshit that he ended up doing, but it basically got forgotten.
Because it's stupid. Who gives a shit? It didn't do anything. It was so performative. Whatever. This is someone who, whatever. Let it go. Let it go.
So it's not actually a filibuster, and then he immediately asked you for $5.
That's why he did it.
Hi, this is Cory Booker. I just walked off the Senate floor, so I might be a little tired and my voice might be a little hoarse. But if you just send me $5, I can fight Trump.
But that's why we love you. Keep fighting the oligarchs by giving your time, money, your votes to the oligarchs.
I have to say, we're capitalists.
And that's worked historically. Don't read history. We'll read it for you. Just stick around.
We're capitalists, and that's just the way that it is.
I love that, and now I'm following that guy. And there was another thing. I don't know if you saw the clip from the Chinese gentleman that put out a thing basically telling us how stupid we are, and we are.
And all the products are made in China.
I agree with him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted please save me. Take me with you.
David, you didn't get a text message from Cory asking for money? I got multiple text messages from Cory asking for money.
You're not on the good list, apparently.
You're on the naughty list. Maybe if you donated, they would come and hound you to no end asking you for money. But that's the thing. Even if you donated, and the problem that I did is that I donated money to Jen's campaign. And I didn't just donate a few bucks. I donated a decent chunk of money. And as a result,
it's anything. If they're doing a $5 ask, it's just the Act Blue list, right? They're not coming after.
No, that's not true. What ends up happening, depending on the level of donor that you are, if as long as you've done it through Act Blue, they will come after you relentlessly. So there's no one way to skin the cat in this case. So even if you hit stop, it's not like it's going to stop. Do you know how many nonprofits are out there that are supporting the Democratic Party that will make an effort to try to get money from you? I mean, they're never going to get it, but it's not going to stop them. And this is exactly the point. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Do I think Khanna would be a better governor than Kamala Harris? Sure.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Without question.
Can I overlook the fact that he has invested $3 million in a war profiteer mega corporation like Palantir? No. And if Roe was on here, I would say it to his face. I wouldn't yell at him. I wouldn't curse him.
We would just say that's not.
It's a non-starter, Roe. It just is. And he will probably justify it by saying that Palantir is not just a war profiteer. You know what? I'm sure they're not. Neither is General Dynamics. But they're still a war profiteer mega corporation. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I could unsee shit. If I could eternal sunshine, spotless mind myself, there are so many days now that I would.
We're going to conclude.
Honestly, when this is all over, if we get to a point where I feel like I can breathe and not be seeing dead bodies and just have a normal day where I feel like I cannot feel dark, would I eternal sunshine, spotless mind myself? Maybe I would at that point. I might. I don't know. Because my brain does not handle all of this very well.
No. And as you guys know, we have had a clip recently that has done some pretty good numbers. It's probably going to cross 20,000 views when we addressed Dave Smith with Brianna Joy Gray. Well, Mr. Douglas Murray, excuse me, Mr. Douglas Murray.
I don't know who this is.
So Doug Murray is the guy.
Oh, the guy talking to Dave Smith. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Douglas Murray was contradicted on basically every statement that he made regarding Israel-Palestine by Douglas Murray.
Into the crossing points.
I really resent that form of argumentation.
When were you last there at all?
Sure. I really resent it.
You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
This is not an attractive invitation.
I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something.
I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me.
Is this
and
the same
I think
person?
that if I said to...
Yes.
What happened to his hair? I don't understand this. I'm so confused. And why do we care what this guy says anyway? Who is this?
This guy, fake Gordon Ramsay, good one, man, with... this is the guy who debated Dave Smith, and
no. I get that, but who is he that he would be debating Dave Smith, and why do we care what he thinks? That's what I mean.
He's considered a intellectual who fully supports Israel and its cause, but he's also a free speech guy. So he is given a certain degree of credibility as a result.
he's like a Jordan Peterson douche.
Worse than that. At least Jordan Peterson has some advice that is worth listening to.
No,
Jordan Peterson. The other way around, it would be equally reprehensible.
I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country even in passing unless I've at least been there.
First of all, do you know how ignorant and arrogant that is?
Yeah.
He did. But it isn't just so much that Murray screwed himself by going on to Rogan. He screwed the Zionist cause by going on to Rogan.
Love it. They have nowhere to go but down. Like everything they say, just like how Kamala, when I said in the very beginning, she can't win because every time she opens her mouth, she'll get less and less people. This is sort of the inverse. These people can't help themselves. I actually like that they do this shit.
No, I definitely agree. And the one thing we have agreed from the very beginning, despite everything that has happened, we knew that it will eventually end because they don't know when to say when. And now that they're on the run, now it's going to be even worse.
If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because...
Hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. It's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form
I don't
of
understand
argument?
these two people. Is that the same person?
In that case, no.
Why is he arguing with him? Like, who put this? I'm very confused by this. I don't understand why we're watching him go back and forth.
The argument that is being made, which was the crux of the entire argument that Doug Murray made against Dave Smith on Rogan's podcast,
right,
is that you have not been to the Gaza Strip, so you do not have the right to comment on this
okay
issue.
So, and now in the past he was saying that
Murray is saying, I don't want to hear this bullshit about how I have to be in a particular place in order for me to comment on it.
Well, I've always thought that, look, I've never flown first class international, but I know I'd like it. Right? Like, I don't have to have had that experience to know that I would really dig it. So, I'm just saying, like, that's a stupid premise.
First of all, he also completely gives off the negative stereotype out of every upper crust, snooty British asshole that you could possibly come across. He is that in spades.
Yeah.
Nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
I suggest
if you're
you do.
insisting that you're an expert of some kind,
sounds
or not
different,
claiming
though.
you're an expert, but still talking about it, if you've never seen any of this going on.
I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who
There
didn't
it is.
experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did.
But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even
Who put
had
this
the
together?
courtesy
It's
to
ridiculous.
visit.
This came out like a day after the podcast. I mean, whoever knew, somebody clearly had to have been listening to Murray for a long time.
Well, clearly he's got hate, man. Clearly you UKers are not a fan.
Forget that his statement was so egregious in every way. The fact
I
that
agree, Philip.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. Bill frickin' Murray all day, every day.
Yeah, we prefer Bill
Whilst
Murray.
Developing all of these views about it.
This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct.
Should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region.
So there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony.
Mr. Murray, you are
He
not
did
only
not do himself a favor by going on Rogan, because that'll be interesting.
you
Now
know,
see what he'll take a hit.
well, in a way we could chastise him, but in a way we should also thank Mr. Douglas Murray.
Well, he's apparently a fascist Zio.
Well, we should thank him for being such a jack-off and going on a podcast because his ego is so big. He was like, oh, I'll have the opportunity to go on with Joe Rogan and Dave Smith, and I will show him exactly why us Brits love the Israels. And then I'm thinking, good, please do it, because your pompous ass will come off in such a way that people are not going to like your argument anyway.
No.
Then you add in the fact that you were on the side of genocide. That's strike two. Strike three is the fact that you are a colossal hypocrite, where people actually have receipts of you basically contradicting your primary argument against Dave Smith. You just don't know what's going on in Gaza and the West Bank because you've never been there.
Well, is that any different than that guy that I know telling me that I should go run for Congress in Gaza? Like, this is how these people think. Like,
well, hold on.
That's their out.
Well, they tell you to go to Gaza because they want you to get killed. That's why they're saying.
Well, they think that I just don't know what I'm talking about, and that if I think those people are so great, I should go live with them. That's what it is, more than they want me to be killed. It's they think that if I think they're so great, I should go live there. I do think they're great. I do. I think they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, we need to have that like 5-second audio clip when Norman Finkelstein called Destiny, "You are such a fantastic moron." Like that's a soundbite we need, because Destiny was trying to tell Norman Finkelstein about Israel, Palestine, and how things are. He puts his hands up in the air and says, yeah, and he called him by his real name. He says, "You are such a fantastic moron."
Oh
it's
my
like,
God, that's so funny.
And I love,
when
a crotchety old guy is basically telling a new guy, just because you're popular on social media doesn't mean you know jack shit about the real world. And it's true. Neither does he. And that is why we have to continue to put this issue front and center. We didn't have to talk about Israel, Palestine with Nina because Nina's on our side.
Yeah.
She agrees 100% with this. So with that said, we have a lot of interesting guests coming up, a lot of guests that Jen wanted to have on our show. Thursday night, we will kick it off with Steve Sosby, who is the founder of Heal Palestine.
Yeah. And guys, that's the organization that's coordinating children to come out of the war zone there and get treated and stay with host families.
Yes. We're not going to play the clips now.
What were you?
I'm going to hold the clips until Thursday. These are the clips of you at the.
Oh, those make me happy though.
At the airport. But I want to play them when Steve is here.
Okay. They make me happy.
Well, do you want me to play? I can play one now if you.
I don't know which ones you have. Well, yeah, I mean, this was just one of the, it made me happy. Although it's this bittersweet thing, because on the one hand, it's happy, but on the other hand, the fact that this whole thing even exists as an organization signifies that we have failed as a species.
Oh, we've failed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole existence of that we're greeting child amputees at airports is a sign that we have failed as a species. We have failed these children. That's all there is to it. I mean, look, kids can be born with limb differences. I get it. Sometimes there's just things that happen, but that's not what we're talking about, right? Like this is so not normal. This is so not normal. I don't even want to think about what this little girl has seen in the past year and a half.
No, and she seemed to be very indifferent.
Well, first of all, the shell shock alone, I cannot fathom what this little girl has been through and seen. Not to mention, I don't know the backstory of how her leg was amputated, but I know that there is no anesthesia, and I know that there's also. I'm just saying, I do.
That's why
the girl has been through.
That's why we really should hold it until Steve gets.
Okay, that's fine. He will know more of her. He will know her story.
He'll know what this young girl Lana had to go through to get to the United States.
And she was one of, just so people know, so there were 3 children that came at the same time. And Steve will talk more about this. So all I know is 3 children flew and they landed in Detroit. So by the time that she then came here from Detroit, it was sort of like her second big welcoming, because they got that, these 3 kids got that when they got to Detroit too, which is great. Like, so she was like, she had so many balloons that it was almost like her wheelchair could have like levitated. And the sweetest thing really for me was watching little kids that were there with their parents to welcome her, little kids going up to this girl in a wheelchair and giving her their stuffed animals. Like, it was the sweetest. It was just so sweet. I really, yeah.
Phil, thank you so much for being a 3-month member. 2024 was 1968 in a lot of ways all over again. It's true. We are living.
So yeah, we will talk more about this. And the reason that this is somewhat is that there is love and inspiration in this story.
Yes.
And that's something that is somewhat comforting.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all the things that we ask you to do. You guys are all great. We are very appreciative. We have had a nice little bump in the past week and a half. We are ever so slightly closing in on 21,000 subscribers. We got to appreciate the little victories.
We've been lapped by so many people. It's so sad.
We have. But we also know what drives the algorithm. We know what type of stories that we can put out there that will do numbers and which won't. But our channel is devoted to the cause. Would it be great?
Oh, this is a good question. This question that Simon is asking, which hospital steps up and offers those treatments, that we will get into with Steve, but
Yes.
It's doctors in different places are volunteering their time. So there's this one, I don't know which doctor it is. I'm going to find out though.
Guys, make sure that
someone
you mark
here
your
is doing it.
calendars. 7 o'clock on Thursday. We're also going to ask Jordan to boost us over at Status Quo to make sure that we get his audience share after they go live. This is a very important guest.
Yeah, guys, we need to support Heal Palestine.
This is big. This gentleman is responsible for this young lady making it to the United States.
Oh, and
like
she's one of a lot. Like look, like it's slow going. They've gotten 6 out like within the past.
Yeah.
Like however.
Listen, I would really like to get Rashida on the podcast at some point. I mean, I think it'd be.
She
important.
was at the Detroit.
She was at the one in Detroit. She was.
Yeah.
And Steve is the gentleman who is running this organization. So it's going to be a great conversation. We hope you will tune in. Make sure to smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We love you all. We'll see you Thursday.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.